Hi everyone, and happy Wednesday. Today's painting is yet again inspired by my favorite muse, Mother Nature. I walked into my greenhouse one day last week and I found a dragonfly. Sadly, it was no longer alive. I probably succumbed to the heat of my greenhouse because it gets very, very hot in there, especially when the doors are closed, and I had not seen it in there until I found it that morning. So sadly, it was no longer alive, but it was just sitting on the floor of my greenhouse and it was beautiful. I had seen many of them, and I continue to see many of them flying around. We have a bit of a boggy neighborhood. I think we have some wetlands across the road from where we live, and I know we have lots of water in the woods nearby. And so it seems like the perfect habitat for them, and I believe they love to eat small insects, and so they're constantly flying around my yard and the garden, and I finally got a chance to see it from very close. So I took some pictures of it because it was very beautiful, and though it was sad to see that it was no longer living, I was thankful that I had a chance to see it from so close because I've never really gotten a chance to get that close to a dragonfly before it flies away. So I took some pictures of it and I decided that I would paint a dragonfly this week as a little homage to that little dragonfly, and yeah, also as an homage to my mom. My mom, who just turned 76 on Saturday, is a huge dragonfly lover, and whenever I see dragonflies I always think of my mom. And funny enough, the day that I found the dragonfly in my greenhouse, that very morning my mom was getting her very first tattoo, and it was of a dragonfly. So I kind of feel like it was very kismet that this was the subject I was choosing for this week's picture, or this week's video. And it's a little ode to my mom and an ode to the dragonfly. So there we have it. I'll be very honest, I'm in the process of trying to overcome a migraine today, and so my vision is pretty blurry, and my head is pounding, so I'm probably gonna be relatively quiet on the video, but I am gonna do my very best to share as much as possible with you about my process, and I hope that whatever remains quiet will be visible in what I'm doing on camera. So thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for all the kindness and love you send my way every week. I am really very honored and very touched by your kind and generous words, and most especially, I feel very blessed that you choose to spend time with me here every week. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you'll enjoy this week's video as well. Let's get going with the process. Before I get going with my painting process, I thought you might be interested in seeing some of the pictures I took of the dragonfly. It really had some beautiful colors on it, and it really also is so amazing when you look at its wings, how intricately created they are. They really are wonderful, wonderful creatures. So I feel fortunate that I had a chance to see one up close, and that I now get a chance to paint one. So I basically started my process by drawing a very simple line drawing of the dragonfly. It is not as intricate as the dragonfly itself. I think I would probably only be able to do it justice if I were to try and paint it on a larger scale, considering all the details on it. But I thought I'd do sort of a simplified version of it, and that hopefully I can do her justice. Although, as you know, I don't typically try to paint anything in a very realistic way, and I don't intend to really change that for this process. I want it to be a colorful painting and a celebration of her life, if we will. Um, and it won't be exactly how beautiful that little dragonfly was, but I think it would still be a nice way to honor her life. To bring the shape of the dragonfly forward, I've decided to use some quinacridone deep gold, and basically a very light wash of that color. And what I'm going to do is just go around the whole contour of the line drawing that I made, and I'm going to just brighten up the background in some way. Because I'm using a very light wash, it's still possible to see what's underneath the paint. And I think this is important because I created, of course, all those wonderful little textures using the salt, and I do want some of those to still be showing through. And so that's why I'm deciding to work with a light wash of that color.
After letting that first layer of, or that second layer of color dry completely, I'm now coming back in with some quinacridone burnt orange, and I'm going to repeat what I just did, but this time I'm mostly going to focus on adding the color more intensely around the dragonfly itself, and I won't necessarily spread as much of that color to the rest of the background, though probably a little bit of it will end up on the rest of the background. I really want to focus on bringing out the shape of the dragonfly at this point, and so I'm going to focus on intensifying that um, quinacridone burnt orange around the dragonfly itself, and then in the other parts of the background, I'm mostly going to be using a clean wet brush to sort of blend the color out a little bit and make sure that I'm not creating a very harsh line of that burnt orange. I won't recreate all of the details on the dragonfly's body that I saw on it, but one of the things that really stood out to me that I really loved is the fact that it looked like it had the shape of a heart on its back. And I love hearts. I really love hearts. And so it kind of felt in some ways like it was sending me a little bit of a message of love. And that I will definitely be keeping in my painting for sure. It's just a very small detail, but I think a very important one. And so I will definitely be including that little shape. It's probably going to be pretty hard for you to see it, but just in the middle of its wings, right there is a little navy blue, or what looks like a little navy blue heart, to me anyway. And yeah, I wanted to make sure I included that. And hopefully you can see it in this picture. It's about as zoomed in as I could get it without really distorting it. Since I'm working on such a small format for this painting, I felt that it was going to be nearly impossible to replicate just how intricate the dragonfly's wings were without making it look too busy. And so I decided to keep the design of the wings very simple. And I'm just basically tracing the lines I created earlier with my fountain pen. And dragonflies' wings are, of course, very transparent, but when they catch the light, they have a shimmeriness to them that I wanted to try and replicate somewhat here using some magic green. I'm not 100% sure it was really the best iridescent color to choose for this process, but it does look nice. I think the other iridescent color that I have right next to it, which right now off the top of my head is escaping me, um, it might have worked a little bit better, but I think the iridescent green, this magic green, also had the potential to work well because it sort of has a bit of a warmth to it, and the background is a little bit warm as well. And so I thought it would work relatively well for the dragonfly's wings. I'm trying to keep the paint as light as possible because I do still want the lines to show through the paint. And I also want some of the background to be showing through the paint once it dries. Since this is not an opaque color and I'm using it in a very light wash, you should also still be able to see some of the background I created in the very beginning. And I think this will also help to give the impression of some of the other little intricate details of the dragonfly's wings without completely, of course, reproducing them. At this point, my friends, I'll be very honest, I was not feeling well and I was sort of trying to force myself to finish the process, and um I'm not sure I really like what I added next to to the painting, but I still felt that it was important to show it. And I guess, if anything, I learned that this is not what I would have preferred to do. Um, I could have potentially, I guess, tried to change it, but I think it would have maybe been difficult to do so at this point. So I'm just going with it. And like I said, sometimes we add certain details to a painting and we figure out as we're doing it that, oh, that's just not what I wanted to do, or I guess it's not coming out the way I would have hoped it would come out. And I do my very best when that happens, when like this is happening, to see it as an opportunity to have learned something about my own creative preferences. So um, yeah, it's not exactly how I wanted it to be. It's a little bit more messy. It's coming out more messy, and I don't know if it's because my paint might have been a little bit too watery in my palette, and so I'm not creating the little finer details that I would have liked to create. And I'm, again, showing you all this and I'm telling you all this because you're bound to experience something similar as well at some point if you haven't already. And when it happens, it's a learning experience. It's frustrating and it can be a bit disappointing, I won't lie. But at the same time, if you learn something from the whole ordeal, then you're better off for it in the long run because you know you won't repeat that again in the future. So it doesn't look completely awful. And it, like I said, it's not my very favorite thing. I do wish I had done something different, but I was in the process of trying to finish this painting process, and I uh, force things to happen faster than I was ready for them to happen, I guess. And that's also another interesting lesson that, when we give ourselves permission to listen to our body and do what our body needs us to do for it, that sometimes it's better And that's that. Yeah. So anyway, it is what it is. It's not, like I said, completely awful, but it's still not my favorite. I kind of wish that I had done something different, maybe chosen a different color, or maybe omitted adding any iridescent paint to the dragonfly's body at all. But ultimately, like I said, I'm learning something, so I'm choosing to see it as a bit of a learning experience in my creative process. And those things that we learn are very important as well. Even if we don't end up with the result that we were really hoping to get initially, as I've mentioned in the past, it's always a good idea to be flexible and to not get too attached to a final result, because sometimes things don't work out the way we want them to. And it's like that not only in creativity, but it's like that in life. I'm sure this is not a new lesson for any of you. So flexibility helps us manage disappointments in um, a much better way. Um, because at this point, I don't really have time or energy to start the process again. And sorry, not the butterfly, but the dragonfly is coming through the way it's coming through. And I already knew from the get-go that it was not going to look exactly as beautiful as the dragonfly that I saw on in my greenhouse that day. So I'm choosing to offer myself some self-compassion, and instead of scrapping the whole project, I am continuing forward and I'm showing it to you. And I hope that you can give yourself the same kind of self-compassion and choose to see these events when they happen as learning opportunities. And I hope this will also help you feel somewhat less disappointed, if not, completely less disappointed. I totally I get disappointed in in my creative process often as well. And it's okay. It doesn't feel okay when it's happening, but I think it's an important part of the learning and the growing as an artist process. Hopefully that all makes sense. Another thing to keep in mind, of course, when something like this is going on in your thought process, is that what you're feeling about your painting when that disappointment sets in may also have something to do with how you're feeling at that specific moment in time. I wasn't feeling well. I was trying to force the process, and maybe the fact that I wasn't feeling well was more what brought the disappointment. It maybe was a little bit harder for me to see the painting in a different light because I wasn't feeling well. That happens, and I know that even today I'm not feeling 100% either with me, fighting this migraine. So I'm still having a bit of a hard time, I won't lie, to look at the painting in a positive light. But even after stepping away from it for a little bit and coming back to it, it actually does look better to me than it did initially. So there is something to be said also about moving away from the painting. And sometimes, if need be, it might actually be good to take a break from the painting process, to take a step back, to go do something else, and then to come back to the painting when you are able to look at it in a different light, either because you've finally given yourself a little bit of rest because that's what you needed at that specific moment in time, or maybe because you feel better. All of those factors do contribute to how we look at the things we create. So, I guess the whole point of this little soliloquy is, to not be too hard on yourself when you have disappointments in your creative process. They happen to all artists, at least that's my impression. And I feel like if any artist out there was being very honest, they would probably say that it's happened to them as well. And so it's going to happen to each and every one of us. It's all going to be about how we choose to look at the moment when it's happening. I wondered, as I was going through this little mental struggle that I was having in my process, if maybe I should add some gold or add some other iridescent paint to try and change things up. And then I finally decided, in my better judgment, I think to just add some splatters of a darker colored paint, to sort of bring out a little bit of what's happening in the dragonfly's body, and sort of spread that a little bit in the rest of the painting. And I think ultimately it was the right decision. I think adding anything else might have made it even busier and I might have struggled with it even more. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't have experimented with it to see how I would have felt about it. That's always a possibility as well. But for now, I'm choosing to look at this painting in as positive a light as I possibly can, considering how I'm feeling. And I just want to say again to that little dragonfly that I am thankful, that it came into my life. I'm sad for the way it came into my life. I wish it hadn't been because it had lost its life. But at the end of the day, that's also part of life. Death is a part of our natural life cycle. And so it's a normal, natural thing for that to happen as well. And so I'm thankful for this little dragonfly coming into my life and helping me have a chance to observe just how beautiful it was. Once again, I want to sincerely thank you for making the time to join me on my creative journey. I hope you have the most wonderful week and happy creating, sweet friends.